Uh, so my presentation is going to be of 2 hours. So please brace yourselves. Uh, what I would like to discuss with you, I'm just joking, I'll finish off in about 20 minutes. Uh, yeah, yeah, I'm also interested in tea. No, I'll take 20 minutes and finish off. Um, just to give you a kind of the background work that we did for DST for this policy, and I'd be more interested in your views than elaborating on what we have done. And uh, we did an analysis of 16 years of industrial data of 22,000 companies and arrived at some of the insights which have been incorporated in the policy document. But before I was listening and I get a sense that you have a very high expectation from a policy document. A policy document is just that, a document, and it is not going to solve all our problems. It's not going to give postdoctoral researchers immediately a greater salary. It's not going to, bring in food on the table for the large majority of Indians. It's a document. It's the intention of the government to do what it thinks best. Implementation of this document will go a long way in correcting all those issues that we have been articulating here. And we also have certain amount of misconceptions regarding what private sector can and will do. So from the morning we have been listening to should, could, would, that's all very fine. But I think what the policy document would like to articulate is not just the should, could, and would part. That's all very good. The advocacy part is all very good, but the government is pretty serious in coming to a partnership with the private sector, and that partnership will happen not because the private sector suddenly will have altruistic reasons or charitable reasons to do that. That partnership will only happen if private sector sees any logical sense in investing, which means if they see money, they're going to invest. And it's up to the government to provide a mechanism for the private sector to be interested in. And that's what precisely this policy document intends to do. It talks about advocacy, but it also talks about some hardcore kind of mechanisms through which actually partnerships can be started. Certain interesting things I would like to share with you. This is a great country and a lot has been said about, private sector is doing such great work. Can you hazard a guess as to how many private sector companies invest more than, let's say, 500 crores? How many private sector companies, how many companies in India? More than 500 crores in R&D. Four. Two of them are government companies, BHEL and HAL. The two private sector companies which invest more than 500 crores, Ranbaxy, Infosys. So that's the state of affairs. So when we are talking about the great private sector coming here to rescue government scientists and bringing in innovation in this country, these are the hard facts. Point number two. Again, you cannot club private sector, take a brush and color all private sector in one color. Amongst private sector, there are certain sectors which are showing some signs of interest in R&D. And what this policy intends to do is handhold those guys who have already shown some interest, rather than cajole and try and do advocacy amongst those sectors which don't show any interest. Right. So the idea is, if you are already seeing some value in research, well, great, let's come into collaboration, let's partner and let's do something about it. The other thing is that scientists, it's very easy to take a brick and keep on bashing scientists. in this country because they don't have a lobby. A lot of good work is happening in this country in our research establishments. We must be mindful of that fact, and we must encourage our scientists to do even better. Most of the US companies which are doing great innovations, you will see there is some Indian somewhere there behind. It's just that our systems and procedures are not up to the standard, and we need to work on it. The policy talks about that as well. So let's see, let's give you some interesting bits of information. We did, as I said, 22,000 companies, and we analyzed the annual reports. So this is data which has been logged in, and this is authoritative data, not just a survey, not just conjectures. This is actually, this has been filed into a regulatory agency, the Finance Ministry. Two distinct phases, pre-99 and post-99. The interesting thing to see is here. Sales have grown by 7.68 times, and R&D has grown by 11 times. Actually, if you look at the data from 2004, 2005 and 2009, 2010, you will see the sales have grown by 2 times, R&D expenditure has grown by 2.5 times, which means that yes, there is some understanding in the private sector also that they need to invest. Considering the fact that actually the total number of companies which invest in private sector has actually gone down from 95, 96. It was something around 1200, it's now hovering around 864. Fact number 2, we eulogize, we are totally in love with our pharma sector and our IT sector. Research shows that actually R&D investment in pharma sector is going down. The number of companies investing in R&D in the pharma sector is actually going down. Okay. We need to do something about it. Probably the policy implementation will look into it more closely. This is what I have been talking about. Nearly 2.5 times from 2004, 2005 to 2009, 2010. Relatively more R&D expenditure in, of course, this we know, but surprisingly in electronics and automotives. And sizable investment, not like more than 500 crores or something, but amongst the 100 crore club, there will be about 127 companies. The sectors where there has been more than 3-fold increase are agricultural production, non-electrical machinery, electrical machinery, mineral products, energy, basic metals and papers. In terms of Indian and foreign private sector entities, you can see that the R&D expenditure of Indian private sector companies stood at, so this is in millions, which means 10 lakhs. So you can move a digit here and that will be crores, which is 11 times more than the similar amount in 95, 96. So there is some momentum going. What it needs to be done is now to forge a partnership. See, ultimately, there are many comparisons between India and China. A majority of the investment of R&D in China comes from industry, whereas as Nita has rightly said, about 85%, 80 to 85% of the R&D investment in India comes from the government. Now, in the long run, the government cannot, if we have to match up as the stated goal is of 2% of GDP, the government can no way keep on investing on R&D. So the remaining part of the investment has to come from our private sector. Now, if it has to come from private sector, we have to create mechanism in which the private sector sees logic in investing. Otherwise, it will be left to the charitable intentions, CSR and so on and so forth of these companies, which is not going to really, 10 crore here or 5 crore there is what you will get. But if you are looking at really hundreds of thousands of crores, you have to create a mechanism in which they see, yes, I see the money, and they are going to invest. And how that is going to come about is when we create structures and mechanisms where by which there is a sharing of risk of research, right? Surprisingly, if you see, foreign private sector investment in India has also grown many times, right? This foreign private sector investment includes a lot of MNCs which have opened up shop in this country. They may not be doing a lot of pharma research, but our kind of research shows that amongst the Fortune 500 companies, about a third have R&D bases in this country. I mean, if you have just got to go outside Hyderabad to Bangalore and places like that to see actually the foreign private sector investing in R&D in this country. Why are they investing in R&D? Obviously, they are getting some return, right? Which means that our Indian brains are being used. I mean, you have to just go 10 kilometers from here, you will get to see Microsoft, where apparently I'm told that 60% of the Windows 8 development actually happened. So our own Indian brains are doing that in India, but for a foreign company. So can we come into a collaboration with our own private sector entities and leverage that human talent that we have here in this country and create world-beating products? If you look at top 50 business houses in the country, in the last 16 years, their investments have gone up about 8.5 times. This is the distribution of companies which invest in R&D. So you can see this is in millions of rupees. So you can see above 5,000 crores, you have about 144 firms. Above 5,000 crore turnover, about 144 firms which have invested in, which are there, and out of which about half, 50% are actually investing in R&D. But similarly, if you see this band, now above 5,000 crore, 50% of the companies investing in R&D is good news, right? Which means that the large companies have understood that there is money to be made if we do research. Now, I also agree that this research data is also, some of it is to get tax concessions, so on and so forth. But be that as it may, at least some of it is actually going into actual research. So the larger companies have probably understood, but the problem is in this band, right? The data has this basically calendar data. Low turnover ranges below 10 million, 10 to 100 are showing a drastic dip in the number of firms. So this R&D being driven by our SMEs is a myth. Amongst SMEs, the culture of investing in R&D is actually coming. I'm talking about this. See, the numbers can always be misleading. These are average kind of scenarios that we are getting. Obviously, in some sectors it will be high, in some sectors it will be low. But by and large, the SMEs spearheading R&D, like if you see the German experience, R&D is spearheaded by SMEs there. But in India, we are seeing, so this is a problem area which the implementation of the policy needs to look into. 100 to 2,000 million, sharp dip in the last 10 years. Sharp dip. Goes on to say that probably there is some churning going on in these classes of companies which are a little bigger than SMEs who are no longer investing in R&D. What is the reason? We'll have to probably analyze more. The implementation has to be, implementation agency has to be careful about seeing. But the real good thing is that 50% of the big companies are investing in R&D. This is the number of companies which invest in R&D. As I said, from 1000 it went to about 1150 and now it is at 874. This is the total number of listed Indian companies doing research, 874 out of total 78,000 companies that are in existence in this country. 874 spend any money on research. There is scope for improvement. Uh, we did a simple analysis of their R&D investment divided by turnover, and we found about 7 sectors which showed promise. One is transport sector, where the RDI is already above 1. So this is basically R&D investment divided by sales multiplied by 100. Okay, which means basically this is the percentage of your sales that you are putting in research. This is all there, so if you want you can just get hold of it. Services sector, very poor performance in terms of R&D. We claim to be that great services sector economy, and this is what we spend on R&D, practically nothing. Electronic sector again is a sector which shows promise. Electronics would include IT also, so this is IT and electronics. But if amongst IT companies, it's only Infosys which spends money on research. The rest, Cognizant, TCS, Wipro, Mahindra, Satyam, are way below. Infosys is somewhere around 650 crores. They will be somewhere around 20 crores. Drugs, of course, drugs has obviously the highest R&D RDI amongst all sectors. There is something called diversified manufacturing. Surprisingly, they are also showing promise, which means that probably we are getting into those research driven high end manufacturing in this country, and they have understood that research pays better dividends. Plastics, another sector. Non-electrical machinery, another sector. And these are the low RDI sectors, and one of which is agricultural products. So, and I think this is relevant because the discussion is happening here in ICRISAT. Surprisingly, we have the largest number of agricultural research institutions in the whole world. India has one of the largest number of agricultural research institutions in the world, and the largest number of agricultural scientists in the world. And it invests also one of the largest amounts amongst developing countries on agriculture. But this is the scenario of our private sector companies when it comes to their R&D, which means what? Which means that probably there is a need for advocacy here to make them understand that please don't just stand outside the companies and look for ready-made stuff coming your way so that you can just commercialize those stuff and get money out of it, but also invest a little bit on research. The top 5 companies in terms of R&D expenditure, you can see in 95-96, Tata, Reliance, ONGC, Indorama, SAIL, 99, Yamaha, Tata Motors, Indian Oil, BEL, ONGC. 2009-2010, Tata Motors, HAL, BHEL, Mahindra, Ranbaxy. So there is a churning going on at the top level as well. If we look at royalties and technical know-how fees, meaning if we have to categorize companies in terms of whatever research they are doing or whatever research they are buying, basically. Technical know-how fees is basically the amount of money I spend to buy off technologies. And the royalty is similarly what I pay for buying off either natural resource or technology. These are all cold field companies because the royalty amount is so high that it skews the data. Again, this is interesting. Tata Communications, MTNL, ONGC, Maruti Suzuki are the two companies which come into this category. So basically, what we are seeing is that you cannot brush, the Indian industry in one color. There are different shades in the Indian industry. And earlier, the government was looking at a policy of I will go to the weakest player and I'll prop him up, and let us look at import substitution and things like that. This policy, thankfully, has a much more pragmatic view of things. It is not talking about let me look at the sectors which are performing badly and let me push money into those sectors. No, which was the earlier scenario. This time we are saying let us look at those sectors which are doing well. Let us look at those sectors which have already understood the, the importance of research. And let us see how we can engage with them to pump in money. See, in government machinery, either you can do either of the two things. One is you pump in money, and two is you regulate. These are the two levers that you have in your hand. You have nothing else, right? So you pump in money where there is better bang for the buck, which this policy is all about, and you kind of regulate when it comes to creating level playing fields. But the thing which why I say that this policy has taken a pragmatic view of things is it has done away with all those things which kind of tries to negate market forces. No. For the first time in this country, we have a major policy document which actually tries to shake hands with market forces and tries to see whether the government can play a role of a facilitator, right?